You are listening to The Memory Keeper by Evan Vaile. Chapter 33.
Several nights later, in a darker part of Melbourne, a man sat alone at a long and crowded bar. He took another gulp of his liquor. The murmur of conversation washed around the room like the pleasant tinkle of the ice cubes jostling in his glass. The bar had 30 people or so in it, maybe more, mostly men. They were clustered in small cliques, enjoying the company and the football game on the television. The room was elegant, dimly lit, with pools of private shadow in the quieter booths at the back. The oak bar spanning the length of the room was a runway for credit cards and $100 bills. The liquor bottles on the shelves gleamed with all the glamour of movie stars at a premiere, competing only with the football game on the television for the patrons' attention. The man seated at the bar was mid-40s and handsome. He was casually dressed in a silk shirt that never failed to catch the discerning female eye, and a pair of loose cotton trousers and tan leather loafers. His shirt was unbuttoned to reveal something glittery and gold at his neck, a dash that completed the ensemble and lent him an air of sophistication and success. He appeared comfortable at the bar, familiar. The busy bartender responded to his empty glass despite never having met the man. Later, when the police asked him to describe the stranger, all he would be able to recall was the shirt and tanned hands, white teeth and black hair, drinking scotch and dry. To be fair, the establishment that day was busy, and to service staff, one customer's face looks much like another's. But for many years to come, the young bartender would tell his patrons the tale of the afternoon he came face to face with a murderer. A young woman walked up to the Deacon, never knowing who he was. She was svelte, a natural beauty. To her, he appeared attractive and rich, the kind of client she enjoyed. He looked up and smiled at her when she sat beside him. He seemed a little surprised at her approach. Perhaps affected modesty, perhaps not. She wasn't sure yet. A lady in her profession learned to discern those subtler hints of character that experienced psychologists would miss. An evening spent propositioning men with nothing more was, after all, very expensive. But even she had no way of knowing that her black dress was the same color as his heart. He bought her a drink and they chatted comfortably for a while. She found him relaxed and witty. She hoped his wallet was as rich as his voice. He wasn't wearing a wedding ring, not that it mattered. When he next sipped at his glass, she reached into a small purse and withdrew a business card. She toyed with it between her slender fingers, pretending to hesitate. The hooded lamp at the end of the bar illuminated her eyes and her smile. She offered him the card. "My name is Reece," she said gently. "I'm 1,000, 4,000 for the night. I promise you won't regret it." The Deacon paused, put his glass down. She was patient while his eyes scanned the information. Then he looked at her and asked, "Do you swallow?" Her savoir-faire faltered momentarily, and she dropped her gaze to the sparkle of reflected light in his glass. After their genteel conversation, she felt surprised at his sudden lack of refinement. His dark, watchful eyes traced her discomfort. She paused for a moment, composing her dignity, then returned her gaze to his. "I do everything you want," she replied. He nodded, amused by her temporary loss of poise. "May I join you in an hour or so?" he asked. "Please," she said. "Where are you staying?" "The Sheraton, but I'd rather not," he started to say. "Of course," she purred. "I'm at the Plaza, room 912. He smiled again and slipped her card into his shirt pocket. "I look forward to it," he said. She stood, letting her dress slide back down over her long legs. "Don't be late. When you knock, I'll be ready." Then she walked away, her hips swaying seductively beneath the thin material. The Deacon watched her depart, then returned his attention to the football game. The bartender had already spotted his empty glass and was moving toward him. Some time later, the Deacon walked the 3 city blocks to the Plaza. The hotel's foyer was a vast chamber filled with plush carpet and neatly dressed porters. The service girls at the counter were busy with paperwork and failed to notice him boarding the elevator. If there were any guests other than Reece staying in the building, the Deacon didn't see them. His soundless steps halted at room 912 and then he knocked twice on the door. "Come in," the female voice said from inside the room. He opened the door and moved inside. His cursory glance around the room revealed it to be spacious and tastefully furnished. She stood beside the bed, wearing only her high heels. Her blonde locks were tied back with a single pink ribbon, and the flawless skin on her legs extended all the way up. One slender hand clasped a champagne flute, the other rested on her hip. She felt her client's prurient gaze touch on certain areas of her naked body. She waited. After a few moments, she asked, "Can I get you something to drink?" He acquiesced and told her what he wanted. She crossed the room with graceful steps. He watched the perfect ovals of her rump as she moved through the motions of preparing his drink. The bar fridge was low to the ground, and she bent over from the waist, leaving her client in no doubt as to what she had to offer. She slipped 2 ice cubes into the glass and returned to his side. They sipped in the silence of the stipendiary courtship. He watched the wine slide over her painted lips and wondered how she would taste. Her expertise in the events to come was considerable, but in her experience, it was this moment that required the most perfect timing. When she judged him ready, she said, "I find that concluding the business first leaves so much more time for the pleasure." He smiled. Placing his glass on the dresser, he reached for his wallet and withdrew the required payment. Her eyes never strayed from the money. His never strayed from her body. She had counted the notes before they even touched her waiting fingers. "Thank you," she mouthed seductively. Her small purse was on the bar. She moved to it and deposited her remuneration safely inside. Leaving her champagne flute there, she returned to him and began unclasping the buttons of his shirt with practiced hands. She liked these early moments, the small movements before the strenuous efforts to follow. The deacon put his glass on the dresser, breathing in her perfume. Then her fingers brushed his, and she guided his hand between her legs. "Don't be shy," she whispered. "That's it. Now, was there something you wanted me to swallow, Harold?" The following morning, Detectives Greg O'Brien and Eva Matamo stood among the plush luxury of room 912 at the Plaza Hotel. The curtains were drawn, and outside in the hallway, uniformed police officers patrolled the entire level. Half a dozen forensics men and women shuffled around the room, examining the crime scene and taking photographs. The dead woman's naked body lay on the bed, her arms still tied to the railing with a sheet. Her mouth gaped open in a desperate appeal for air, and her face was the color of the ocean. 12 hours of death had rendered the corpse as cold as the metal bedhead it was secured to. O'Brien glanced at her for as long as his job required, then looked away, letting his attention follow the methodical activity of the forensics people. A young man stopped taking photos and spoke with the detectives. "That's how the maid found her," he said. O'Brien nodded. "Who is she?" "Prostitute," the young forensics man replied. "The staff say she's been working from this hotel for the past few months. Attracts high-paying clients." "Well, now she's attracting low-paid detectives," O'Brien grunted. Eva shot a disgusted glance at her partner, then returned her gaze to the young man. "Cause of death?" she asked. "Suffocation," he said. "Sometime just after the football game yesterday. There were 75 notes stuffed down her throat." Matamo frowned. 75? "Exactly $1,000, explained O'Brien. The trio stepped aside to allow a lady wearing white gloves and carrying an equipment kit to pass. O'Brien moved to the bed, being careful not to tread on any of the areas of the carpet marked for inspection. Without touching the body, he observed that all of her front teeth were missing. Her mouth was clear of debris, the notes having been removed before the detectives arrived on the scene. "How old is she?" he asked. 21, the cop said. He grimaced, scratched at his neck. "No way for a young lady to die." The young cop nodded. "The attacker smashed her teeth using the base of a lamp, then fed the notes into her throat individually." O'Brien moved away, having seen enough. "Fingerprints?" he asked. "The room's covered in them," the cop said. "We might have something useful on the lamp." O'Brien cracked his knuckles, one by one, thinking. "All right," he said finally. "Let's see if we can put together a list of her regular clients and check to see how many have an alibi and a police record. Talk to the staff at the foyer's front desk. Perhaps they saw her return with the perp, and find out which bars she frequents to pick up clients. She had a pretty face, and people tend to notice pretty faces. Someone must have seen something." Matamo glanced back out the door. "What's the hotel doing with the guests staying in the other rooms on this level?" "They've closed off the entire 9th floor, the young cop answered. "For how long?" asked Matamo. The cop opened his mouth to reply, but O'Brien interrupted with his own answer. For as long as the murder is in the newspapers, I'd say. It's a sure bet the management won't shed any tears over the death of a high-priced hooker working out of its hotel. Eva turned to the young cop and said, "Get a list of the guests who were staying on this floor yesterday and the day before. Hopefully, some of them are still in town." The young cop nodded.
That is the end of this chapter. To listen to the next chapter on YouTube or to purchase the digital ebook from Amazon, see the links in the description.